Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond the Bench. I am your host, Brandon Stemwedel. Having played college soccer myself and realizing how stressful the process can be on student athletes and parents, I thought that I would reach out to my good friend and head men's soccer coach at Coe College, Kyle Bakas. Kyle, give our viewers some insight about your background.
Oh, easy. Thanks for having me on, Brandon. This will be fun. Brandon and I actually know each other back from when I coached Duluth FC, and he was actually a roommate of mine for a couple of years. So we've got some good history, and this is probably the most formal chat we've ever had. So this will
Very
be
true.
fun. As Brandon said, I'm the head men's soccer coach at Coe College, D3 school in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I've been in my post since November, and prior to that, I was the assistant coach for a season. I've got experience as a club director at a couple different clubs, most recently Billings United Soccer Club. I was there for a couple of years in Billings, Montana, which is a absolutely stunning place. And prior to that, I spent time in Minnesota with Duluth FC for a couple of years, Lake Superior Junior College, and before that, I was on the East Coast, coaching in the youth ranks and the high school ranks.
Awesome. Very nice. So kind of just diving in a little bit, obviously this is one of our favorite topics to talk about is what got you involved in soccer? Like there's so many sports here in the United States. Like why soccer? What made you get started in that?
School. So I grew up in Southern California, and I went to a little Catholic school. And California is, believe now, it's a minority majority state. Um, So when I going to a Catholic school there, a little white boy, I was in the minority, and there are a lot of Hispanic kids. And first grade, I came home like, whoa, they're playing this game. We're kicking this ball, and it was awesome. It was jungle ball, like 35 versus 35, and you score a goal as long as you hit the window without breaking the window. But I was pretty sold on it from that moment on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can definitely relate. I lived in Chicago and like being able to just get a ball and get some like even trash cans and just play. Like whoever scores ends up going in goal and you just play. That's the best part about it.
Yeah.
So obviously you got started in playing. What made you transition from playing into coaching?
I think a variety of factors. Just first one I've always thought was I was an older brother, so I kind of grew up trying to convince my siblings to play with me and coach them up so that I would enjoy playing with them more. And then I think the other factor was I was involved with summer camps throughout college, and being able to see the impact a coach and his or her love for an activity can make on a young person was really cool. And it was something I was like, I think I could do this as almost a vocation.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I mean, in going with the coaching side, obviously you've said that you've kind of done youth side and now you're kind of transitioned more into the college side again. How has that been a big change for you in that transition?
I think that in some ways it's not a big change at all. Um, and in some ways it is. I think when you're in the youth system, there's a lot more structure. There are many more levels of oversight, we'll say. You know, you have a director. If you are the director, you have a board of directors. So you have eyes looking over what you're doing. You have your parents who hold you accountable because they are paying money, and a lot of times they're not necessarily holding you accountable to the best practices of teaching and implementing the game. They're holding you accountable based on politics and stuff. And whereas the college game, you end up working for basically a single athletic director, and maybe a VP is involved as well. And frequently they have very limited knowledge of the game of soccer because we're in America. They understand how recruiting works, they understand how sports work, but they're not soccer specific people, which gives you a ton of flexibility on what you want to implement. You go from being a salesman at the club game where I'm going to implement possession, we're going to lose games at first, and then we're going to win, to the parents to here, nobody cares. The focus is more on, are you getting a recruiting class in that's capable of competing? And so it's just it's a shift in focus, and in some ways there's a lot more freedom and flexibility.
I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit because I mean we've kind of already talked about like the recruiting process. So let's kind of dive into that recruiting side of it. So when you're out recruiting, what are you looking for from a player to do in the recruiting process? So for example, if I'm a high school kid and I'm wanting to go to college, what is the best way for me to start communicating with you?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think there's several different manners in which recruitment can happen. Obviously, if you're just a stud muffin, you may have schools knocking on your door, but the number of individuals who have that happen are few and far between, right? And so I think a lot of the recruiting process, it is on the individual who wants to be recruited. And so step one, you just reach out to a coach, right? An email, hey coach, I'm interested. That's simple. At least the coach knows. Now, the more thorough you are in your email saying, hey, this is my GPA, these are my test scores, here's what I'm interested in studying. And by the way, I looked at your page on your website and you guys looked like you had a good season or bad season or you're in a rebuilding phase. It indicates to the coach that you have more interest than just like, hey, this is an email going out to every coach whose email I have, right? So a little more personalized approach, and coaches will get back to you if you put that time in.
Awesome. So obviously that's more of a player taking the initiative to go to you. What about the other way around? Like what makes you have to take the initiative on players when you're seeing like that stud that's out there?
Yeah, and obviously college coaches are at high school games, they're at college games, they're connecting with club directors to see, hey, are there players who might fit our program? And really what it's all going to emanate from is, what's my vision of my program? How do I want my team to play? How do I want them to look? And do you fit into that? So I may not be looking at the same players that every other coach is looking at, right? It may not be based on like, oh, I need a guy who's 6 foot, buck 80, 8 pack, and can run a 4.6 40. It's going to be something much more specific to my program. And does that player fit into the identity I want to establish? And so for me, the number one thing I'm looking for is intelligence. Not so academic intelligence is great, but game intelligence. And there are many ways you can tell this, right? You're going to watch the player and see how many times he makes a correct decision, right? How many times he's able to break multiple lines with a pass or just keep the ball, right? And you're going to evaluate those two things differently depending on the position he plays. And then when I talk to him, I ask every player, who are you as a player? What's your style? And then what's your preferred team style of play? And if they start saying something that's kind of outside of what we're looking for, we have a little bit more of a conversation about that. Because we can work with that, but what I want to know is, does that individual think about the game of soccer? And so a couple of days ago, there was a kid who just like, he's going to be a great coach one day, I think. Like he has this mind for the game. And that's what I'm looking for. And I ended up sending him articles that I would send to you,
Right.
as a coach, and say, hey, check this out. It's tactical periodization. This one's positional play. This one's about how to teach the game using this methodology. And he ate it up. And we chatted far too long because he is a student of the game. And to me, if you're gonna play in our program, you need to be a student of the game, because, and you may know this or disagree with this from me having coached you,
Yeah.
I like my players to have say. I want them to be intelligent, because I don't think I'm going to have the best ideas all the time. Hell, not even most of the time sometimes. But if I can get those ideas from the players and figure out how to make them work, our program is going to be far more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I mean, you're limited to your own mind. And so if when you branch out and get more people involved, it helps a ton, and gives perspective. Even if you don't agree with it, it's still a perspective. So that's really good insight and really good for players to kind of understand where you come from as a coach, to really portray to them. So kind of on that note as well, like you haven't had a single conversation with a player yet. You go to a tournament, a college showcase or something like that. What do you look for when you're on the field? Like other than that knowledge part, like are you looking for like the technical sides of things? Are you looking for like tactical? Are you watching what the team's formations are? Have you kind of like looked at those types of things as well?
Yeah, so I think all of those are in there in layers. And for me, I don't separate the tactical and the technical. I think they're wrapped up into a decision, right? Any technical thing is wrapped up into how you positioned yourself on the field in relation to the opposition and your team. And so I was having a conversation with a coach the other day, and his point was like, a player who may not have the greatest first touch in a game could look like he's the most technical because he finds himself in positions between lines away from defenders. And so I'm looking for that. What's the positioning, right? And then the one thing that I look at a lot, and like I kind of counted in my mind, is how many times does a player check his shoulder? Right
Mm,
before receiving the ball off the ball. So I'll be looking kind of from the chest up a lot of times, and because otherwise it's going to be very evident if a kid has complete swagger on the ball and it's just like the ball's an extension of him. And it's going to be evident if he's got lead feet, right? But in between there, who's checking and really playing the game? Because the
mm.
game is played without the ball at your feet. And so if those guys are positioning themselves where even if they have a bigger first touch, their positioning is going to negate that weakness.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good insight. So I mean, like the reason why I'm asking those questions in particular is for there's a lot of players that are out there that think, oh, I need to be this way, or I need to be this way. This is how you get recruited. This is where you go. And a lot of times, no matter the level, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 in the division, um, it's not about necessarily who you know. It's about what you can do on and off the ball. So kind of going a little bit further into that as well. What are some of the mistakes that a lot of potential recruits end up making when going through this process as being recruited?
I think the kind of cardinal mistake is setting your sights on playing Division 1 or 2 or NAIA, right? And not recognizing that there's some great programs at Division 1, 2, 3, and NAIA. And it's really the program and the school, the educational piece of it, that you should be focusing on, right? And the real difference between D1 and D2 isn't the caliber of play, it's how many scholarships an institution is allowed to offer. Now, most institutions aren't going to be fully funded. So if I'm D2 and I'm allowed to offer the 9.9 full scholarships, I might only be able to offer 3.9. And so if your sights are set on like, it's got to be D2, I got to get an athletic scholarship or bust, you may be missing out on some top tier D3 programs or a top NAIA program that maybe wouldn't be able to offer you as much of an athletic scholarship, but they make up for it in their financial student aid package or in their academic scholarships. And I think that cast as wide a net as possible, and don't worry about the divisions because that is not the actual indicator of quality.
Yeah, that's actually really good insight as well. A lot of people overlook your high-end Division 3 schools, or even like your middle of the road Division 2 schools, because they're trying to get that D1 scholarship. I've
Yeah.
also noticed that, being up north here, that there's a lot of players that just don't communicate at all with other coaches. So I mean, being a coach yourself, have you noticed that you've networked with other coaches, as far as Division 3, Division 2, Division 1, that you guys kind of talk about players as well?
Um, There's an element of that. I think it can be difficult because sometimes there's not overlap in the players you're looking for. So I think where you would see more of those conversations is if I'm looking for a specific type of player. So our brand of soccer is going to be possession based with high pressing defense and always stressing like the positional play element and decision making. And so if you're a coach who's kind of going through the same thing and has that same focus, we're probably looking at very similar players, right? And then it might be where like, hey, I'm talking to this guy and what do you think? And it's not as open as you might think. I think a lot of coaches they view this as their grand strategy, their grand plan, and they're not willing to share. And so I'd be very willing to share because I think kids are going to choose the school based on the school and then based on whether they like you. And me sharing with you that, hey, I think number 12 is a baller, da da da, and we talk about his characteristics and qualities. I don't think it's going to impact me in the recruiting process, but maybe I'm more secure in my ability to recruit than other coaches.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So kind of like transitioning a little bit more, we've kind of been talking about how it's not necessarily about the play on the field, but also in the classroom. So in the classroom, what can you tell us about Cole College?
I think Co is a great institution, and one of the things you get with like a smaller D3 school, let's say around 2,000 kids like Co, is the student to faculty ratio is extremely low. The student to teacher ratio, I think, is like 11 to 1 or 10 to 1. That means there are limited opportunities to flounder because your professors notice when you're not in a class and your classmates notice when you're not in there because they miss you, they miss your insight, they miss what you bring to that learning environment. And so I think that's kind of a big component of our school is embracing that liberal arts education in a small setting so that when you do a freshman seminar, you're not only connecting with ideas, you're connecting with other individuals who have similar and disparate ideas. And so your whole worldview is expanded and enhanced. And then obviously Co has a great nursing program, a wonderful like physics program. Our athletic training program is top notch. And then we've been ranked in the top 20 nationally, like year after year after year for internships for students. And some of these internships, Brandon, you and I would be like, yeah, let's do that. Until the pandemic, I had a kid who he told me about his and is working with some like sports program and doing all these things. Like, dang, that sounds like an awesome summer job. Like, had I known, I probably would have applied.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Hey, mom and dad, your son or daughter wants to play soccer. You go to the store and you get the essentials: shin guards, socks, cleats, and a ball. But what about some soccer skills before they go to their first practice? MOTI Sports is a 3D soccer training platform to help give coaching points on the mechanics of soccer. You can download the free MOTI mobile app on your Android or Apple device today.
So kind of sticking with that college side of things, what is the day in the life of a student athlete at Cole College?
So I think the day in the life of a student athlete, you have in season and off season, and off season is probably a little bit more relaxed. And you actually see grades kind of dip a little sometimes in the off season because it is more relaxed. Students think they have more time on their hands, but college students can choose their course schedule, and so frequently you'll see guys like with classes 10 to 2 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a class or maybe even no classes on Tuesday, Thursday. And so they're rolling out of bed sometime around 9:30, getting a snack, going to their classes, lunch, get done. A lot of our guys will study right after their classes, and then we train sometime in the afternoon. So if we're training at 5:30, they probably get into the locker room at 4:30, 4:45, hang out, go see the trainer, and then hit the field, train about an hour and a half. As you get deeper into the season, we'll cut it down to maybe even just 45 minutes so that we're saving their bodies and making sure that we have a healthy team. both mentally and physically. And then they'll go have dinner and be a college student. So probably go hang out with friends, do some stupid things, a little bit of studying, and then hopefully bed by midnight so that they're getting plenty of rest so they can recover.
Yeah, I mean, those are really important too, especially knowing like what it's like in the city. So tell me a little bit more about Cedar Rapids, because I mean, being up north here, you hear great things that it's really similar to Duluth, Minnesota, but at the same time, like Cedar Rapids is its own brand. So tell me a little bit more about Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, I think like in Duluth, the lake is your cornerstone. And I think here in Cedar Rapids, the river is the cornerstone, and downtown is built right up on the river, and it's awesome. It's not. It is in a lot of ways similar to Duluth, where you have, for those of us over 21, you have plenty of breweries and restaurants to choose from. You have something like a couple hundred miles of cycling trails here. Um, which is awesome. You've got a couple nature centers. But if you're a college student, it's all about proximity of the fun things, clubs and other stuff to campus. And our campus is less than a mile from downtown. So our guys figure out plenty of ways to have fun. And some are super chill and just a walk downtown is fine. Others want to go to a restaurant or go find a place to dance, and all those options are there.
Awesome. Yeah, really good. So I'm going to kind of transition a little bit more. This is kind of like the fun part of the whole thing, kind of keeping you a little bit more relaxed as well. But just kind of rapid fire questions that a lot of players would want to get to know you, and even some of our viewers as well. So tell me about your favorite team, like current team, and then like an all-time favorite team.
Yeah, I like how you phrase it, because I don't have a team that I just support.
Yeah.
I support whoever's playing the soccer I like. And up until the season's ended, it's been Manchester City probably since Pep got there.
Yeah.
I just think that the way that they're able to attack in waves, dominate possession of the ball, and then just crush a team defensively, it's just awesome. And to see what a good coach can do to a great player like Raheem Sterling and make him even better is just impressive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm a Man United fan, you know that, but it's really hard to say, I can't. You have to appreciate what Pep's done with that squad and brought out the most in his players.
Yeah,
Sure.
and then I think my all-time team would be Leicester when they won the league, just because they had to play two different styles. Against weaker opponents, they had to dominate possession a little more, and against stronger ones, they didn't have quite the same skill set or verve to do that, so they relied on their counterattack. And I thought being able to juxtapose those two differing styles and create a championship team was really impressive.
Awesome. So we've done the team side, now the player side. Who's your favorite player, current and all time?
I mean, shoot, you probably have to say Messi. I mean, he's so much fun to watch. He's so smart. I think it's tough not to want to name the greatest player in history as your favorite, especially when he's still playing. So Ronaldo fans out there, he's awesome too. But Messi, I think, is just the better overall player. And I'll happily argue this with people. But my favorite all time is Ronaldinho. I think he could have been the greatest had he stayed fit, healthy, and kept his competitive desire alive. But I also think, having made that statement, that one of the most awesome things he brings to the game is that he only played it because he loved it. Like competing to him looked like an afterthought. He played because it was a 1v1 or 1v2 battle, and the ball was his puppet. He could do whatever the heck he wanted with it. And with soccer not being on, I've watched way too many of his highlight videos, because it's a joyful embodiment of what the game is. It's like a little kid playing in this finely tuned athlete's body.
Absolutely, yeah. My favorite one to watch right now is 2002 when Barca versus Real Madrid. And he absolutely just destroyed Real Madrid on
Yeah.
the counter. One phenomenal game. Favorite stadium, one that you've been to and one that you would like to go to.
Man, that's a good question. I I can't separate stadiums from experience, right? And so I
Mm.
have two favorites, and I've been to like Old Trafford, I've been to Craven Cottage, but it's been the lower leagues that have captured me because the fans are rabid, they're crazy. And so when I was in England after college about 10 years ago, I went to an AFC Wimbledon game. I think they were in the seventh or eighth tier at that point, and 5,000 people in a standing only stadium, and the supporters went to whichever goal their team was attacking on, and it was an amazing atmosphere. And then the other one, and I mean, hesitate to even call it a stadium, but would be Detroit City,
Uh,
and their little high school stadium, because you put 9,000 people who are bleeding for a team, a club, and it transcends the most beautiful stadium Minnesota United or DC United could make, because there's no passion in those stadiums.
oh yeah, I'll remember that game for the rest of my life because that
Yeah.
was, oh, gosh, can't even imagine. What was your best coaching accomplishment?
You fools. Duluth FC, I think, 2017, winning the conference and getting to the Midwest semifinal against Detroit FC. It's one I hope to surpass, because I'd like to win a national title. But till now, I think that was a really cool accomplishment. Just seeing how a group of, again, Division 3 players took on former pros and D1 players and just punked them.
Absolutely, yeah, that was fun. So kind of going into why we became coaches. A lot of us is we had like some sort of mentor or teacher. So who's that one person that you can kind of look to and be like, yes, they kind of were real pivotal in my life.
I think it's probably a range of people, but my grandfather probably. He was a teacher, and he was and then grandfather, dad, my mom, like all teachers. And so kind of getting to see that. And my dad had been a wrestling coach, and so just kind of being able to grow up in that teaching, that educational, that coaching environment kind of shaped what I wanted to do.
Very cool. Last question from me is, what is your biggest pet peeve, soccer pet peeve, and just life pet peeve?
Yeah, I think my biggest soccer pet peeve is coaches not respecting the duty they have to teach players how to play the game properly. And the example of this is, get it up the field, just kick it up. And I've seen college level coaches do this. I've seen club level coaches do it. Like, let's just freaking panic. Everything we've taught you, or say that we've preached, goes out the window in this moment because I'm scared that we're going to give up a goal, instead of teaching players how to be composed and stay true to their principles of play. And yeah, it's a huge pet peeve. And I think the other one with soccer is like people saying that you can't teach possession soccer in a short window, or you can't teach it if your players aren't good enough. And I think all of that is BS. You just have to be a better coach.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that one. Do you have a life one? A life pet peeve?
Man, I don't think so. I mean, I got to be very careful because I'm married, and I might say it and my wife might be okay. So doing the dishes is a pet peeve. I hate it.
Doing the dishes. I like that. Well, Kyle, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Obviously from MOTI Sports, we're really excited to be able to get you out there and to be able to help co-college, and look forward to further chats.
Yeah, man, this was great chatting with you, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
As you can hear, Kyle has given great information for players that are looking to play at the college or university level. I want to give Kyle a special thanks for taking time out of his busy schedule, and good luck on the upcoming season. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in and hope that you gained some useful information from the conversation. In our next episode on Beyond the Bench, We are going to discuss ways to take positive role as a parent in youth sports. You can catch all of our episodes of Beyond the Bench on your favorite podcast station. See you next time.